Benidorm Fest is in trouble. Here's why. The fourth edition of Benidorm Fest took place over last week and concluded on Saturday. Melody with the song Essa Diva was crowned the winner and will represent Spain at this year's Eurovision Song Contest in Basel. However, away from the results, fans and journalists have commented that this year's edition of Benidorm Fest has been the most underwhelming edition since its return in 2022. For close followers of the show, this comes as little surprise. Over the last few years, fans of the show have commented that the quality of the songs seems to decrease with every year, as do the viewing figures. This begs the question, is Benidorm Fest in trouble? If you think so, you might have some of your concerns addressed in this video. My name is Sean and I am a Eurovision reactor and commentator. I do these videos because I genuinely love Eurovision and I want to contribute to its improvement. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel, as that will help me to keep creating content like this for your intrigue. And if you want to interact with me on all things Eurovision, come and follow me on my social media. Before we begin, I have to clarify a few things. I absolutely love Benidorm Fest more than most Eurovision fans, if that's even possible. I think that it is a successful contest and a brilliant idea that could do with a few improvements in order to keep going and to keep growing. The purpose of this commentary is to discuss the concerns of the press and the fans in order to hopefully contribute to a discussion that should help the improvement and the progress of this young national final that we all love so much. Disclaimers out of the way, let's go back in time and let's understand how Benidorm Fest became Spain's national Eurovision selection. Spain's Eurovision debut came in 1961 with Conchita Bautista and her song Estando Contigo. She finished 9th overall out of 16 entries. In their early years, it took Spain a while to find their mojo at the contest. However, in 1968, Maciel took the Iberian nation to the victory with La La La. In 1969, Spain found itself on top again, together with another 3 countries. Yes, 4 countries won the 1969 contest, because at the time there was no tie-break rule in place. Since then, Spain has never won the contest and its track record has been checkered. In the 1970s, the country had great fortunes as they found themselves inside the top 10 9 times. However, the 1980s were less successful as Spain got 4 top 10 results, with their highest scoring entry being Bravo's Lady Lady, which came third in 1984. The 90s promised more success as Azúcar Moreno were the first act of the decade. Their ethnic flamenco track Bandido secured 5th place and was followed by a 4th place finish by Serafín in 1992. In 1995, Spain almost won the competition, with Anabel Conde finishing 2nd with Vuelve Conmigo. The 2000s also started out well as Spain found themselves in the top 10 every year between 2001 and 2004. However, Spain's Eurovision hopes came crashing down in 2005 and did not pick up for a long time. Despite promising participations from stars like Las Ketchup and Edurne, Spain only achieved 2 top 10 finishes. In 2012, Pastora Soler came 10th with Quédate Conmigo, and in 2014, Ruth Lorenzo equaled that result with Dancing in the Rain. By the early 2010s, fans were beginning to lose interest and RTVE's viewing figures tumbled down. Many blamed Spain's poor showing on former head of delegation Federico Llano and RTVE entertainment boss Tony Prieto. By 2016, Spanish fans demanded their resignation after Barré, who was among the favorites to win the contest, only came 22nd. Fueled by Barré's revelations on how restricted she was by the Spanish delegation at the contest in Stockholm, together with the scandalous results that came from the 2017 pre-selection, Federico Llano resigned in February 2017 and was replaced by Ana María Bordas. Since then, Spain's results did not improve at all. In fact, they got worse. After Blas Cantos' 24th place finish in 2021, RTVE were forced to act. In June of the same year, new RTVE president José Manuel Pérez Tornero promised to change the Spanish approach to Eurovision. After years of poor results and inconsistent selection shows that were hastily produced when an internally selected artist dropped out, change had arrived. On the 22nd of July 2021, RTVE announced that Spain's 2022 entry would be selected through a festival in Benidorm. The idea was to establish a format that lasts more than 1 year. This formula might have been new for international fans, but not for the Spaniards. Benidorm had been home to a summer song festival based on the Italian Sanremo festival, which ran from 1959 until 2006. Over the years, it had undergone multiple modifications, however, the contest was never related to Eurovision. Throughout the 2000s, Spain had either chosen internally or through national finals like Objetivo Eurovision or Mira quién va a Eurovision. In 2018 and 2019, talent show Operación Triunfo was used to select, but was later continued without a Eurovision selection. In August 2021, RTVE announced that head of delegation Ana Maria Bordas was moved to head of original content at RTVE, and she was replaced by Eva Mora, the new Spanish head of delegation. This news was welcomed by fans who knew Eva Mora as a journalist on RTVE. Eurovision 2018 representative F.Y.R Garcia tweeted in support of Eva Mora's appointment, saying that he could not imagine a more professional person with more passion and respect for the festival and for music. Together with Eva Mora, RTVE enlisted the help of Maria F.Y.R, Director of Communication and Participation at RTVE, to help produce Benidorm Fest. These two names were essentially the new faces of Spain at Eurovision. By late 2021, preparations for the new Benidorm Fest were in full swing. Everything around the Spanish Eurovision selection started to look current and correct, and fans couldn't help feeling excited over a format that had been desired for so long. In December 2021, the list of participants for the first Benidorm Fest was revealed, and the excitement only got bigger. Established names like Rigoberta Bandini, Azúcar Moreno, Loreen, and tanxuguerias were among the new candidates to represent Spain. These are all huge stars and certainly more established than most Spanish singers in the 2010s. Expectations were huge, as local and international fans were finally invested in a Spanish national final that was worth their investment. The inaugural edition of Benidorm Fest kicked off on the 26th of January 2022 and was hosted by actress-songwriter Alaska, journalist Maxime Huerta, and influencer Ines Hernand. The format contained 2 semi-finals with 7 songs each. 4 songs from each semi-final qualified for a final of 8 entries. The voting was determined by a 50% jury, a 25% demoscopic vote, and a 25% televote. Tanxuguerias and Rigoberta Bandini were the early favorites to win. However, in the first semi-final, it was Chanel who stole the show and won the jury and the demoscopic vote, while Tanxuguerias won the televote and would not have qualified had it been for the jury. Most fans were with Tanxuguerias and were already suspicious of the result, but since it was just the semi-final, many thought that these points did not matter. In the second semi-final, Rigoberta Bandini comfortably found her place in the final, with Raiden behind her in second, and this led to a final which was considered to be a 3-horse race. The jury was expected to go for Chanel, and the televote was expected to go for Tanxuguerias. However, since the latter got a poor score from the heavily influential jurors, some thought that Rigoberta Bandini could pull off a compromise win. The final took place on the 29th of January 2022, with 8 singers competing to represent Spain in the 2022 Eurovision Song Contest in Torino. As the voting segment started, Tanxuguerias got a low score from the jury once again, while Chanel and Rigoberta Bandini topped the jury vote. The demoscopic and the televote both went for Tanxuguerias, but this was not enough to topple jury darling Chanel, who eventually won overall with her song Slomo. After the final concluded, the hysteria did not die down. A few days after Chanel's victory, allegations of favoritism arose, as local media reported that jury member Miriam Benedicte, whose vote accounted to 10% of the overall result, had previously worked with Chanel as a choreographer. This led to allegations of cronyism, as Chanel received 51 out of a maximum 60 jury points. Furthermore, Spanish viewers expressed their frustration with the voting system, where the jury votes were proportionally represented in the points, while the demoscopic and the televotes were not. The frustration only grew bigger when it was revealed that fan favorites Tanxuguerias received more than 70% of the televote, while winner Chanel received less than 4%. This disproportionality was never addressed at Benidorm Fest and has led fans to believe that this is a means through which RTV controls the result through a very influential jury vote. Although the Spanish fans were not entirely satisfied with how the inaugural show found its Eurovision representative, by May, the Spanish enthusiasts mobilized behind Chanel, who had a lot of momentum going into the competition in Torino. The Cuban-born dancer finished third in the final and obtained Spain's best result since 1995, and a storming result for the return of Benidorm Fest. The show returned in 2023 with 18 hopefuls. Although fans noticed that the quality of the songs was not as strong as the previous year, it was still very promising. While some fan favorites had underwhelming live performances, Operación Triunfo alumni Agone did not disappoint, and he comfortably won the first semi-final. During the second semi-final, a song that was not considered as a favorite was Ea Ea by Blanca Paloma. However, her stunning performance was hyped up by the Spanish press, and the magic was unveiled in the second semi-final. Just like Agone, Blanca Paloma won both the televote and the jury of her semi-final. This shaped the final into a two-horse race. As the jury vote was revealed, Blanca Paloma gathered a massive 94-point lead over Agone, who received 80 points. It was already looking good for Blanca Paloma, especially after she gained another 35 points from the demoscopic vote against 30 points for Agone. Although the televote was anticipated, it was clear that Blanca Paloma could not be caught. Her win was confirmed as she received the maximum points from the televote as well. Unlike the previous year, the Spanish fans went into Eurovision 2023 unified behind the Valencian songbird. However, the result in Liverpool was not as rewarding as the one before it. While the juries ranked Spain a respectable 9th place, the public seemed very polarized on Ea Ea, which received just 5 points from the televote. Overall, Spain came 17th, their second best result at Eurovision since 2015. The third edition of Benidorm Fest was confirmed in July 2023. Although Spain had hoped for a better result with Blanca Paloma, this did not stop the fans from wondering if 2024 could find a winner. However, as the songs dropped in December, hopes were quickly dashed as enthusiasts agreed that the lineup was the weakest in 3 editions. The shows kicked off on January 30, 2023, and with songs of a lower quality than the years before, came shockingly weak live performances. During this first semi-final, a voting scandal emerged. At the end of the voting sequence, it was revealed that Mantra had won the televote. However, due to low scores received from the heavily influential jury, they could not advance to the final. Although not everyone thought Mantra's song was good enough to qualify, everyone agreed that a system where the televote winner is not assured a place in the final is essentially broken. Despite this, the show continued and the live performances of the second semi-final got so bad that people began to ask if these artists' live vocal capabilities were assessed before being shortlisted. To make matters worse, the voting system was questioned again, as the juries ranked audience favorite Jorge González 6th out of 8 songs right before a long choir of boos was heard in the audience, forcing the hosts to intervene. However, unlike Mantra, Jorge still found his place in the final after winning both the demoscopic and the televote. The final took place on February 3, 2024, and despite a strange concept for a minimalist ballad, San Pedro was expected to be crowned the winner. However, the jury awarded San Pedro and Nebulosa both 86 points, which meant that for the first time ever, the winner was not to be decided by the jury. The demoscopic vote widened the gap by just 2 points in favor of Nebulosa, and as the televote came in, San Pedro was only given 5th place, which meant that streaming hitmakers Nebulosa, who won the televote with just 2 votes, were the third winners of Benidorm Fest. Although the song was never expected to do well at Eurovision, it was a huge streaming hit in Spain, and the fans were happy to go into Eurovision with a song they loved rather than one they thought had Eurovision potential. Terra finished in 22nd place at the contest in Malmö and achieved Spain's worst result since the return of Benidorm Fest. The submission window for the 4th edition opened on the 20th of May 2024, and RTVE announced that a free app voting method would be inaugurated. In addition, adjustments were made to the semi-final voting presentation. These changes meant that the detailed results of the semi-finals would no longer be revealed on the night, and instead, the hosts would only reveal the finalists. This change is assumed to be introduced to address the booing that comes from the audience during the semi-final. In this way, the jury would not have to go through the embarrassment of reading out some very unpopular results. The songs dropped on the 18th of December 2024, and once again, fans were not pleased. Although the Benidorm Fest lineups got progressively weaker, this was the first time that some critics went as far as comparing this lineup to the level of Objetivo Eurovision, a level of a national final that Spanish fans thought was buried in the history books. Although the songs were uninspiring and the fans were starting to lose interest, former Rosalia backing vocalist La Chispa seemed to be the one that people were putting their money on. However, during the first semi-final on the 28th of January, her vocal performance shocked many viewers by how poor it was. Despite this, La Chispa made it to the final alongside Daniela Blasco and Cuve. The final place was down to jury favourite Lucas Bun and televote darling Sonia y Selena. Although chants from the audience were clearly for the Ibethan duo, it was Lucas Bun who prevailed. The second semi-final offered more potential candidates for Eurovision, with Jota Cabello, Carla Frigo and Melody in the mix. Once again, the live performances of Benidorm's youngest were vocally poor, and once everyone performed, it was clear that Melody was the only act that had the most wholesome package. Jota Cabello, Melody and Melomana made the final on both fronts, and the last place was expected to go to audience favorite De Teresa. However, jury qualifier Mawot was announced as the last finalist, as the crowd proceeded in a loud choir of boos and whistles. For the first time since its return, the Benidorm Fest final was one act to lose, and that person was Melody. Sure enough, she won with a storming televote victory and a narrow third place from the jury. While Spain's Eurovision 2025 story is yet to be written in Basel this May, the history of Benidorm Fest in the last few years leaves viewers wondering how such a successful national final format became so poor in so few years. One facet that many fans claim to be the reason behind the huge drop in quality is the responsible team behind Benidorm Fest and the Spanish Eurovision participation. Soon after Eurovision 2022, RTVE announced that Benidorm Fest and the Spanish Eurovision participation would continue without the popular HOD Eva Mora. Previous boss Ana Maria Bordas was reinstated in the role she was supposed to occupy only temporarily. Although Mora was one of the initiators of the successful return of Benidorm Fest, RTVE decided to ignore her success and replace her with her predecessor, who achieved nothing in comparison. According to Yessi Bubble, in an article published on May 25, 2023, this replacement came down to tensions between Maria Eizaguirre, Head of Communication and Participation at RTVE, and Head of Content José Pablo López. After Eurovision 2022, Maria Eizaguirre decided to replace the Spanish Head of Press, who had assumed the role for more than 15 years, with a person of trust. This was the first incident that started the tension between Eizaguirre and Mora, and later continued in Yerevan during the 2022 Junior Eurovision edition, where Eva Mora was left out from conferences and delegation meetings. This continued during the 2023 Benidorm Fest. In April 2023, the relationship between the two soured further after Maria Eizaguirre's trip to Kenya. During this trip, she used starving Kenyan children to promote the candidacy of Blanca Paloma. This was heavily criticized by Spanish media outlets as the tension between the two continued to show during Blanca Paloma's farewell event before Eurovision. Eizaguirre, who was in charge of presenting the act and was supposed to give the word over to Mora, avoided announcing her presence and just signaled Mora to take the microphone. Due to the tension, José Pablo López made the controversial decision to drop Eva Mora and only informed her at the same time the press release about Benidorm Fest 2024 was made. Ana Maria Bordas remains the Spanish head of delegation until today. During her tenure, Spain's best results are two 22nd place finishes in 2019 and in 2024, while during Eva Mora's tenure, Spain's worst result was a 17th place by Blanca Paloma in 2023. Although these delegation changes are indeed regressive, Spanish fans argue that the steep decline of Benidorm Fest is down to more than just a delegation change. Then why is Benidorm Fest in so much trouble? In this segment, I will outline 7 reasons as to why this national final that we love so much is not as good as it used to be. The inaugural edition of Benidorm Fest pleasantly surprised multiple fans with the inclusion of quite a few established artists. However, this did not really last, as the lineup quickly became a party of newcomers rather than established names. While an established artist does not necessarily guarantee success, and a newcomer does not necessarily guarantee failure, in a music industry like the Spanish one, fans are more likely to follow the competition if their favorite artists are involved. Furthermore, artists with management teams and record labels behind them are more likely to bring in an immediate and a complete offering more than newcomers, simply because their careers are at stake and there is much more to lose. Newcomers tend to have less musical direction and tend to use a competition like Benidorm Fest to kickstart their careers. The reality that established artists are reluctant to participate leaves room for speculation on the antics of the Spanish delegation. As we've discussed before, Eurovision's reputation in Spain has just begun to recover from the dark days of the 2010s when Spain's Eurovision potential was held hostage for so long. Therefore, it is no surprise that the reluctance of established artists leaves fans wondering if Eurovision is still being run by people who want to make the Spanish Eurovision representative a product of RTVE. This might be one of the reasons why the quality at Benidorm Fest seems to get progressively worse after every year. Across multiple national finals across Europe, singers who do not win on their first attempt often try their luck again in the future. In 4 editions of Benidorm Fest, we have only seen one returnee, Blanca Paloma, who debuted in 2022, come back and win in 2023. In theory, this is not necessarily a bad thing, since every year provides a fresh lineup of artists. In fact, it contrasts from national finals like MESC or ST Lau that are often criticized for having the same artists over and over again. With this being said, it is certainly another extreme to have no returning artists coming back, especially in a country like Spain and in a format like Benidorm Fest, which gives so much potential. While this theory is not proven by any comments made by past artists whatsoever, the impression given is that artists enter Benidorm Fest for domestic exposure. However, past artists seem reluctant to repeat the Benidorm Fest experience, and the reasons behind this could be anyone's guess. From the voting disproportionality to the poor sound quality of the live performances, shortcomings that fans have commented on throughout these 4 editions are surely felt by the artists as well. The lack of returnees could also be down to the selection committee. Indie rock band Megara, who competed in 2023, also submitted a song in 2024, which according to the band was rejected by the producers. However, we all know how that story went with that song, and to be fair, it wasn't really a great song to begin with. The voting system at Benidorm Fest has probably been attacked in every edition to date. In this video, I will not comment on the makeup of each jury panel. For that, you can watch my previous Here's Why video, which specifically talks about the role of juries at Eurovision. Disclaimer, it includes some seriously hot takes. What is so shamelessly the norm at Benidorm Fest is how the jury has so much power than the televote, despite it only accounting to 50% of the total vote. This is because juries vote in the traditional 8, 10 and 12 points voting system, and the jury winner can get up to 96 points if they receive 12 points from each juror. However, until 2024, the demoscopic and the televote could only award a maximum of 80 points together to the song that wins both of them. Since 2025, the demoscopic vote was removed, yet the amount of fixed points that the televote winner could receive remained that of 80 points. Therefore, due to the disproportion of how the jury votes are converted into points differently than the televote, the jury has the power to influence the result. As the jury consists of just 8 people, whereas the televote is made up of thousands of voters, if those 8 people employed by the broadcaster have the greatest power to influence, it is not crazy to think that the voting system exists to protect the influence of these 8 people, who are effectively making up the Benidorm Fest results and choosing the Spanish Eurovision representative themselves. To the production's enormous discredit, this is one of Benidorm Fest's greatest letdowns, and is likely to be one of the reasons why the decrease in viewership since 2022. Throughout the years, fan favorites like Tanxuguerias and Jorge Gonzalez, who got massive scores from the televote and the demoscopic, were robbed from winning Benidorm Fest due to the low score that the jury gave them, which was enough to kill their chances despite being the public choice. This year, this issue was not so prevalent, as for the first time ever, the jury winner did not win Benidorm Fest. Overall, Melody came third in the jury, but won thanks to the televote which put her first. However, the frustration could be felt in the semi-finals. In both shows, the jury got all 4 of their qualifiers, while the public only got 3. In the first semi-final, Sonia and Selena were booted out in favor of Lucas Bun, while in the second semi-final, we lost audience favorite De Teresa to Mawat. Both songs that made it got the lowest scores in the final, both from the jury and the public. During the first 2 years, this problem was not as widespread as it is today. However, since 2024, many artists at Benidorm Fest had vocal performances that were disappointing, underwhelming, and in some cases even off-key. This left fans with two questions. Can these artists sing live? And does the selection committee not make sure that these songs can be performed competently live? While this is a problem that could have easily been avoided in the 2025 Benidorm Fest, it only seemed to get worse, as this time almost all the fan favorites got up on stage and left the impression that their vocal capabilities are much smaller than what the studio version of their song suggests. The obvious repercussion of this lies on the reputation of Benidorm Fest. If this young format that is actively trying to gain respect from the Spanish artists and the fans is going to put on performances that can only be sung poorly, its reputation will then only attract those who can sing poorly. The consequence of this will be increased distance from established artists and continued low viewing figures. And the outcome of this will inevitably lead to another axing of another Spanish national final format. While recent Eurovision rules do allow the use of pre-recorded backing vocals, national final formats can choose to restrict them. When identifying the issues caused by pre-recorded backing vocals, it is important to understand why they were allowed at Eurovision in the first place. The use of pre-recorded backing came to Eurovision in 2021, during the coronavirus pandemic. As many broadcasters were cash-strapped due to the budget cuts from their local governments, the EBU wanted to ease the pressure by allowing the use of pre-recorded backing vocals. In this way, delegations could cut down on the costs of live backing vocalists. Since then, many expected this restriction to be put back into force once the coronavirus pandemic came to an end. However, it did not. National final formats which allowed this mostly do so because Eurovision rules allow it, and therefore do it according to Eurovision rules, which clearly state that the lead vocal must be performed live. This is not necessarily the case at Benidorm Fest, as multiple performances across the years have contained so much use of pre-recorded backing that they got fans questioning which parts the artists actually sang. While many would argue that this is a shift in line with current music trends, it is evidently a progress backwards, especially if we as voters and viewers are actively allowing ourselves to be fooled by these vocal capabilities or the lack of. This also puts vocally talented singers who don't need to rely on the use of pre-recorded backing vocals at a disadvantage. If weak singers are allowed to come to a level playing field with singers who can perform live, we are clearly allowing a culture of cheating and achieving what is not merited. Ultimately, this also takes away from the beauty of live performances at Eurovision, as well as the artistry and the talent of singers who are required to sing the song that they sing. From artists, voting systems and performances, we are now going on a bit of a tonal shift. Since its return, Benidorm Fest seems to be an event that is mostly enjoyed by one specific group in society. During Benidorm Week, fans consistently comment on how the audience in the arena is predominantly made up of men who are part of the LGBTQ+ community. While there is morally nothing wrong with this and actually presents a great sense of tolerance and acceptance, it doesn't really serve the brand and the production which unifies the country in song and dance to be only enjoyed by one proportion in society. The stereotype in Spain that Eurovision seems to exist only for the diva lovers does go back to the days before Benidorm Fest. And probably Spanish fans can talk more about this than myself and share insights in the comment section below. However, I personally feel that Benidorm Fest does not do enough to get away from this misconception. Once it does, I can't help but think that the show will earn a broader appeal and also help getting rid of the stigma that Eurovision is only for the gays and the gays only love Eurovision. I'm pretty sure that there are many LGBTQ+ people who don't follow Eurovision, and I'm even more sure that Benidorm Fest is an event that is enjoyed by people who are not part of the LGBTQ community and are coming from all sexualities and backgrounds. As discussed earlier, I do believe that part of this problem is due to a reluctance from established artists in the Spanish music industry. However, even for the songs that competed in recent editions, most people who watch Benidorm Fest and aren't actually big Eurovision fans would argue that the songs are lessening in quality, as they are starting to feel a little bit outdated and out of touch from the Spanish local music scene. While this problem is not as huge as it used to be in the 2010s, RTVE should seek to solve the issue proactively once it is not a big deal, rather than reactively once it is a huge problem and interest in Benidorm Fest is already down because of it. I am sure that actual music industry professionals can address this better than I can. However, one example on how the producers can actually smoothen down this issue is by looking at Finland. Just before the rebrand of the Finnish national selection process, the broadcaster teamed up with Yle X, the biggest youth-oriented radio station in the country. This helped select songs that interest young audiences as well as more mature ones while creating a show that attracts everyone's interest. The results speak for themselves, as UMK went from a failed format to becoming one of the biggest national finals on national finals circuit. In Finland, it is considered as the biggest music show in the country and has since attracted the country's biggest stars. If Benidorm Fest can work with local radio stations and streaming platforms to address this issue, I think that Spain can actually have an opportunity to take the already successful Benidorm Fest to the next level. And that is why Benidorm Fest is in trouble.
Okay, Sean, so if you think you know it all, how would you make sure that Benidorm Fest doesn't lose interest and stays relevant?
What a great question. Here is what needs to happen, in my opinion, for the format to survive, grow its audience and interest. Many artists choose to stay away from Benidorm Fest because it is a product of RTVE. For some reason, the idea that once the Spanish representative goes to Eurovision, they become the property of the broadcaster and will be subject to the terms and conditions set by the broadcaster has not gone away. For all we know, this idea might still be prevalent because it might be the reality. Therefore, RTVE needs to understand that for this problem to go away and for them to attract more artists, they need to let go of the power in more ways than one. In the last 4 editions, Benidorm Fest has introduced us to a multitude of artists that we didn't know of. It would be really interesting to let these artists, those who want to, come back to the competition. This would help cement Benidorm Fest as an institution in Spain rather than just a national final. And in this way, reputation and interest would grow so much to the point that just like in Italy with Sanremo, nobody would want to refuse doing Benidorm Fest. I think that the voting system should give equal proportional power to the televote and let the public have the last word on who they want to see represent them at Eurovision. I also believe that in the semi-finals, Benidorm Fest should rip off a page from Eurovision and Melodifestivalen's books and just let the public decides on who to have in the final. Then the jury can be reintroduced in the final to help pick the winner. Very simple. Live, not broadcast, but live auditions are needed to rectify this problem. This will save the show and the artist a lot of embarrassment and disappointment once they step on stage and we find out that they can't really sing live. If we only had performers who can actually sing live as well as they can do in the studio, we wouldn't need pre-recorded backing vocals at all. However, again, if we won't be able to get rid of this altogether, the producers need to really limit the amount of pre-recorded backing in order to safeguard the reputation of this contest that we love so much. I think producers need to research and develop this idea in order to see how they can address it. However, I'm pretty sure that if RTV incorporates Benidorm Fest into its most successful formats, in some way, whether it's through collaborations or through advertisements, I think Benidorm might be onto something. Spain is a massive country with lots of influence and resources. I think that if RTV collaborated with local radio stations with high viewerships and streaming platforms like Spotify, it could better the level of the songs that compete in the national final. And on that note, if you made it to the end of this video, I appreciate you so much. Like I said before, Benidorm Fest is a contest that I love dearly and I wouldn't miss it for the world. But as a massive follower, I just felt the need to make this video for the community of fans out there who have some of these concerns as well. Let's face it, the last thing we want is for Benidorm Fest to keep growing unsuccessful and for RTV to cancel it altogether. That's the last thing we need, right? So let's all unite and contribute to its improvement while we still can. Thank you so much for watching. This is my 4th video from my Here's Why series of commentary. And if you enjoyed it and you would like to see more, please subscribe to my channel as that will help me keep creating these videos. Subscribes are free and as you can see my content is honest and insightful. And if you want to interact with me on social media, you can find the handles below. Once again, thank you for watching. Let's get hyped for Eurovision 2025. Bye bye.